December 4th, 2024, 6:46 in the morning. A man in a gray hoodie approaches the Hilton Hotel on 6th Avenue in Manhattan. He walks with purpose. He knows exactly where he's going. Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, the largest health insurance company in America, is about to arrive for an investor conference. He'll never make it inside. I'm your host, and this is Case Files Explained. Today, the evidence, the arrest, and the legal battle that could determine what a jury ever gets to hear. 5 days after the shooting, a customer at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, recognized a face. The same face that had been on every news channel in America. Luigi Mangione was sitting there eating when police arrived. In his backpack, a ghost gun, a fake ID, and a notebook. That notebook would become the center of everything. But here's where this case gets complicated. What exactly can prosecutors use against him, and what might get thrown out before a jury ever sees it? To understand what's at stake, we need to go back to who Brian Thompson was, and why his death ignited something far beyond a murder investigation. Thompson led UnitedHealthcare, a company that insures more Americans than any other. He'd been CEO since 2021, married, 2 sons, a Minnesota native who'd spent his career in healthcare. UnitedHealthcare has faced years of criticism over claim denials. In 2023, a congressional investigation found the company denied prior authorization requests at higher rates than competitors. This isn't to justify what happened. Nothing justifies murder, but it explains why the case became a lightning rod for something bigger than one man's death. Now let's talk about Luigi Mangione. 26 years old at the time. An Ivy League graduate from a wealthy Baltimore family. By every measure, someone with everything to lose. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with degrees in computer science and engineering. His family owned nursing homes in Maryland. He grew up in privilege. Friends later described him as brilliant but troubled. He'd struggled with chronic back pain following a surfing injury. He'd become increasingly isolated in the months before December. According to the Department of Justice, on December 4, 2024, a masked gunman approached Brian Thompson outside the Manhattan Hilton and shot him multiple times. Thompson died at the scene. The shooter was captured on surveillance video. He wore a gray hoodie, a backpack, and appeared to use a firearm with a silencer. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. The manhunt lasted 5 days. The NYPD released surveillance images. They traced the shooter's movements to a hostel on the Upper West Side. At the hostel, the shooter had registered under a fake ID, using the name Mark Rosario. That same name would surface again 5 days later. On December 9th, in Altoona, Pennsylvania, a McDonald's customer noticed someone matching the shooter's description. They called police. Officers found Luigi Mangione eating breakfast. When officers asked for identification, Mangione gave them the name Mark Rosario, the same name used at the New York hostel days before the shooting. In his backpack, investigators found a 9mm ghost gun, a firearm without serial numbers, assembled from parts. Prosecutors say it matches the weapon used in the shooting. Ghost guns have become a growing concern for law enforcement. They're untraceable. No background check required. And increasingly they're showing up at crime scenes across the country. But the most significant piece of evidence wasn't the gun. It was a spiral-bound notebook filled with handwritten pages. Prosecutors call it a manifesto. According to court documents, the writings expressed hostility toward health insurance companies. They included ideas about targeting a CEO at an investor conference. A crumpled paper found on Mangione appeared to be a to-do list. Under reminders for December 8th, the day before his arrest, it listed Best Buy. Investigators later found a receipt from that same Best Buy for a Polaroid waterproof digital camera and memory cards. What he intended to document remains unclear. So here's where the case stands as we approach trial. Mangione faces both state and federal charges, but the federal case, that's where things shifted dramatically. In January 2026, a federal judge dismissed the charges that carried the death penalty. The ruling cited jurisdictional issues with the firearms statute. Mangione no longer faces execution. But he still faces murder charges in New York State. Life in prison is very much on the table, and that's where the evidence fight gets interesting. Defense attorneys have filed motions to suppress key evidence, including Mangione's statements to police. The argument centers on Miranda rights. When exactly was he read them, and did he understand them? Here's the thing about Miranda rights, they're not a magic formula. Timing matters, context matters, and in high-pressure arrest situations, the line can blur. The question isn't just whether police read Mangione his rights, it's whether statements he made before that point, or during the confusion of his arrest, can be used against him. According to PBS News, the hearing revealed new details about the arrest, including what Mangione allegedly said when confronted with the fake ID. Those statements may now be challenged. The contents of the backpack face similar challenges. Defense lawyers will argue about how it was searched, when consent was given, if it was given at all. In-person jury selection is scheduled to begin October 5, 2026. Opening statements are set for October 26th. Between now and then, months of pre-trial motions. And here's what makes this case unusual. The notebook. The writings. Prosecutors want the jury to see them as evidence of premeditation. But they're also, potentially, statements of motive. Motive isn't required to prove murder, but juries want to understand why. And in this case, the why has already divided public opinion in ways nobody expected. In the weeks after the shooting, something strange happened online. Some people, while condemning violence, expressed sympathy not for the victim, but for the alleged motive. Healthcare claim denials. Coverage refusals. People losing life savings to medical debt. The anger is real, even if the act is inexcusable. This puts the trial in an unusual position. How do you select a jury that can separate the question of guilt from their own feelings about the healthcare system? If you're following this case, it may help to understand how evidence suppression actually works. It's not about hiding the truth, it's about constitutional process. When police obtain evidence improperly, without warrant, without proper Miranda warnings, courts may rule it inadmissible. The jury never sees it. Consider this a safeguard, not a loophole. Whether Mangione's statements and backpack contents survive these challenges will be decided in the coming months. The outcome could reshape how the trial unfolds. Ghost guns, untraceable firearms assembled from parts, represent a growing challenge for law enforcement. Understanding this trend may help you follow developments in firearms policy. The case has also intensified debates about healthcare reform. Whether that conversation leads to policy changes, that remains to be seen. Brian Thompson was 50 years old. He left behind a wife and 2 children. Whatever happens in court, a family lost someone they loved. And Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old from a prominent family, an Ivy League graduate, now faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. The manifesto in his backpack may tell us why he allegedly did what he did, but understanding motive doesn't change the fact that a man is dead. This case sits at the intersection of so many things Americans are struggling with: healthcare, inequality, violence, and what we do when systems fail people. None of those things make murder acceptable, but they're why this case won't fade quietly. Too many people see their own frustrations reflected in it. If you find yourself drawn to cases like this, if you want the full picture, not the headlines, this is what we do here. Consider subscribing to follow along as the trial unfolds. The trial is scheduled for October 2026. Between now and then, expect more pre-trial motions, more evidence challenges, and more arguments about what the jury will be allowed to see. Following high-profile trials means separating what's reported from what's proven. Court documents, when available, often tell a different story than headlines. Consider going to primary sources when you can. The manifesto, those handwritten pages, may be the prosecution's most powerful piece of evidence, or it may be the most contested. We won't know until the judge rules. What we know is this: on December 4, 2024, a man was killed. On December 9th, another man was arrested carrying evidence that allegedly connected him to the crime. The justice system will determine whether that evidence proves guilt beyond reasonable doubt. That's not a formality. It's the entire point. And whatever the outcome, this case has already changed something. It's forced a conversation about healthcare that many would prefer to avoid. Understanding complex cases means holding two things at once: sympathy for legitimate grievances and absolute rejection of violence as a solution. That tension is where thoughtful analysis lives. Brian Thompson is dead. Luigi Mangione awaits trial. And somewhere in a Pennsylvania evidence room, a notebook holds whatever truth he chose to write down. The courts will decide what's admissible. The jury will decide what's true. And the rest of us will be left to make sense of a case that refuses to be simple. That's the case as it stands. I'm your host. And this has been Case Files Explained. We'll be back with the trial coverage when it begins. Until then, ask the hard questions.